welcome and glad that you all could make it. Robert and Layton, I don't know if we need new lights, but in that video, I look old.
No comment.
We'll call the meeting to order. With us this morning is Reverend Paul Ellis Jackson from University Congregational Church. He is here to provide an invocation, and following that we will have a Pledge of Allegiance, and we invite you to join us for both of those. Mr. Jackson, great to have you.
Good to be here. Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Mayor, City Council members, staff of the City of Wichita, guests and citizens. During this Holy Week, may we take a moment to simply reflect on the sacred holiness of each day. Please join me in a spirit of gratitude this morning. God of many names, as we stand on sacred ground this morning, ground where countless lives have been lived, the millions who went before us, even before the first settlers thought of crossing the vast prairie to homestead here, we recall their names this morning: Arapaho, Comanche, Kansa, Kiowa, Missouri, Osage, Oto, and the Pawnee, and numerous other peoples who have called this land their home. We honor their names and their sacred memories this morning. Holy One, as we drove to the seat of local government this morning, what was on our minds? Was it the details weighing us down, the forgotten tasks that are critical for some meeting today? Was it a harsh word that was uttered yesterday, shared between coworkers, a single word that stung? Or maybe many words that deepened a divide between us? Was it a little betrayal that we did, that little selfish act that slowly breaks us down? What dark, angry thing are we chewing on this morning? What urgent next thing is gnawing at the back of our minds and saying, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, let's go, let's go, let's go? What keeps us separated from the eternal in these short, mortal hours of this day? It's just a Tuesday, one of countless days that we go through. One more day, maybe on the road to Friday, we might think. One more day until perhaps a vacation, time away. Maybe one more day on that road to retirement when we won't have to deal with these formal issues anymore. Perhaps, maybe we are just hoping to get through this day safely in whatever way we are able, with fewer scars and less damage to our souls. One more day counted off on our very limited supply of days. God of this quiet moment, what if instead all gathered here in sacred agreement decided to approach this Tuesday as the unique miracle that it is? What if, when we mutter amen here in a bit, we lift our heads to the brilliant lives about us, to the sacred trust given all gathered here to do the very best we can for each of our Wichita neighbors? What if, when we finish this brief moment of contemplation, we carry the bond of community into every act of work we perform today? May every interaction we have this day remind us of the love that we all share for each other, for the families and extensions of each of us, and for this great community that we call home, whom multitudes have called home before us, and hopefully multitudes will call home after we are gone. Our great home, Wichita. Amen.
The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Reverend. We have the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting on April 9th, 2019. Any changes or corrections? Seeing none, I move that we approve those meeting minutes.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any other discussion? Cast your vote. Motion passes 7-0, and we have some proclamations this morning. proclamation for Small Business Week. Is this Mr. Bell and Michael? Is it Almac? Almac, close. And I have it down that you're speaking and you're behind the camera. All right. The proclamation from the city of Wichita, founded in 1870, whereas America's progress has been driven by pioneers who think big, take risks, and work hard. And whereas from the storefront shops that anchor Main Street to the high-tech startups that keep America on the cutting edge, small businesses are the backbone of our economy and the cornerstones of nation's promise. And whereas when we support small businesses, jobs are created and local communities preserve their unique culture. And whereas because this country's 28 million small businesses created nearly 2 out of 3 jobs in our economy, we cannot resolve ourselves to create jobs and spur economic growth in America without discussing ways to support our entrepreneurs. And whereas the city of Wichita supports and joins in the national effort to help America's small business do what they do best, grow their business, create jobs, and ensure our communities remain as vibrant tomorrow as they are today. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Jeff Longwell, Mayor of the city, along with the Wichita City Council, do hereby proclaim May 5th through May 11th, 2019 as Small Business Week, and call upon the people of Wichita to acknowledge the importance of small businesses to the growth of our community and to join us in commemorating small business. And speaking on behalf of Michael Almac is Wayne Bell.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Good morning. Certainly want to thank Mayor Longwell and members of the City Council and City Manager Bob Layton for issuing this proclamation honoring National Small Business Week, which again occurs May 5th through May 11th. Supporting small businesses is critical to our local economy. They create 2 out of every 3 new jobs, and more than half of Americans and Wichitans either own or work for a small business. Every day, small businesses contribute to the tax base through job creation and innovation, and their creativity increases America's global competitiveness. During National Small Business Week, the SBA recognizes some of the most successful and inspiring of these entrepreneurs. On Wednesday, May 8th, the SBA Wichita District Office will honor 2 state winners that are based here in Wichita. And so SBA's 2019 Kansas Small Business Person of the Year is Kurt Smith, owner of Picasso's Pizzeria. And our 2019 Kansas Small Business Exporter of the Year is Mr. Roby Lorick, president of PWI Incorporated. Please join me in acknowledging those 2 Small Business Week winners. Thank you.
Do we have Darren Byes with Ducks Unlimited? Is Darren here? Oh, I should have known by the shirt. Just need to look around. How are you? Doing well. We have a proclamation for the Arkansas River Trash Roundup that Darren Byes and his group has been helping sponsor for 152 years. Yeah. We appreciate it. Proclamation from the City of Wichita. Whereas the celebration of National Earth Day can take many forms, the City of Wichita's premier environmental event takes place along the Arkansas River with dedicated and passionate volunteers from across Sedgwick County. And whereas the Arkansas River Trash Roundup is an 18-year tradition to clean up Wichita's greatest natural resource, and whereas the 2019 Arkansas River Trash Roundup will increase water quality, protect the animals who call the river home, enhance Wichita's image, and safeguard our communities downstream from Derby to the Gulf of Mexico. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Jeff Longwell, Mayor of the City of Wichita, along with the Wichita City Council, do hereby proclaim Saturday, May 4th, 2019 as Arkansas River Trash Roundup Day, and encourage all citizens to participate in the Arkansas River Trash Roundup to help make our city a beautiful place in which to live, work, and play. And would any of you like to share?
Sure, David would. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Good to have you.
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. My name is David Nelson with Ducks Unlimited. Mr. Mayor, City Council, thank you all very much for your continued support of this event. This event is one of the funnest of the year for me. It always happens in the spring, always around Arbor Day, and it always has a very, very good turnout regardless of the weather. So this year's event happens to be May 4th. Registration will start at 8:30 in the morning at the parking lot just north of the Drury Inn. If you're not familiar with the event last year drew almost 900 attendees. And over the course of the time that we've held this event, we've cleaned up over 29 tons of trash from the Arkansas River for the area that we maintain during this event. So it's not just all about coming out and getting grungy and dirty on a spring day. We hope to have good weather, but we also feed everybody. So there's a big barbecue after the event. Everybody is invited. This is a very fun event. It's family friendly, and we just keep growing every year. So this year we have over 25 sponsors, including Cargill, Spirit Aerosystems, obviously the City of Wichita, Intrust Bank. I would be up here for a long time if I named off all of them. But we couldn't do this without those sponsors. We couldn't do this without the City Council, and we couldn't do this without all of you. So thank you everybody for the time this morning. We hope to see you out there on May 4th at 8:30 in the morning. Thanks. Thank you.
So I have a proclamation for Arbor Day that I believe Troy Houtman is going to receive. And anyone else? Anyone that likes trees? I guess Troy's not here. Troy doesn't really like trees. But we're glad you do.
Yes.
Good morning. Good morning. So the proclamation from the City of Wichita. Whereas the City of Wichita encourages environmental stewardship and the creation of a more sustainable community through the increase in the urban canopy. And whereas trees in our city increase property values and enhance the economic vitality of business districts and beautify our community. And whereas the City of Wichita recognizes the legacy of planting trees in generational in scope and daily in benefit. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Jeff Longwell, Mayor of the City of Wichita, along with the Wichita City Council, do hereby proclaim Friday, April 26, 2019 as Arbor Day, and encourage all Wichitans to attend the City of Wichita Arbor Day celebration at Harvest Park and be a part of the legacy of Arbor Day by planting a tree on your own property. And I have a couple of these, and someone like to share?
I will. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Mr. Manager, for all the support that you give us. We do a lot of good work in our forestry department, and that is not because we don't get to share in our partnerships. One of the partnerships that we have is Project Beauty. They're a community organization that really does promote our urban forest. Our urban forest is very important to us because it provides over $200 million worth of benefit to the citizens of Wichita every year. And we are trying to be good stewards of that, and we invite you to participate in that. We invite you to plant a tree on your property. We also invite you, as the proclamation states, to participate in Arbor Day celebration at Harvest Park at 10 a.m. Friday, April 26th. Thank you.
You're welcome to share it too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Madam Clerk, you want to call the next item?
Ann Fox, Habitat for Humanity, Impact of Wichita Habitat's Rock the Block Revitalization Neighborhood.
Good morning, Mayor Longwell, councilpersons, Manager Layton. Mayor, I want to thank you for this invitation to come speak, which was extended on Martin Luther King Day this year when you helped us to frame up 2 5-bedroom homes. Those homes will be sold the last 2 weeks of this month. So a really exciting time for the homeowners that participated in that day. And we chose this month to come and speak because this is the 5-year anniversary of our work in the Rock the Block area, which is bounded by 9th Street on the south, 13th on the north, Grove on the west, and Hillside on the east. As of this month, 40 homes have been built and sold in that area. They house 86 children and 55 adults. And 6 blighted properties in the area have been removed with boarded up home program funds. I think the most exciting thing, and here's one depiction of this, 3 of the blocks in the area have gone from under 20% owner occupied. This particular block was 12% owner occupied in 2014. It's now 64% owner occupied, and 60% is the mark where we consider a neighborhood to be very stable when the ownership is that high. There are now 3 blocks that are at that 60% marker up, and you can see the dramatic difference that makes in the appearance and definitely in the livability of the neighborhood. Just to make sure you remember, Habitat for Humanity sells homes to persons who are on low to very low income ranges, 35 to 65% of area median income. They're becoming homeowners. They're paying back property tax. $126,000 in property tax has been paid by Habitat homeowners from this area over the past 5 years. That compares to $4,500 in tax dollars you received when those lots were vacant. So a huge difference in the property tax being returned. We've also seen a real improvement in the appraised value of the homes. When we started building them, the first homes were being appraised at $76,000. It cost us more than that to build. Last year they were appraising at $86,000. It's about a 10% increase, which means we're really having the desired impact on improving and uplifting the neighborhood as a whole. And engagement of volunteers in our work is one of the critical components, not only the homeowners who are buying the homes, who invest 400 hours of sweat equity in the homes before they can buy them, but also in members of the community. So 97,000 volunteer hours have been booked in that area of our community. That's about 3,200 unique individuals every year who are venturing into our urban core and seeing the situations in the area, but also helping to improve that. We, of course, couldn't do that work without the city and your support. Over that 5-year period, City of Wichita has granted HUD funding to us in the amount of $750,000 through the Housing Development Loan Program. 190 of that was approved last week. That's an incredible help because it offsets the costs we incur when developing in the urban core. The Metropolitan Area Planning Commission is always asking, how can we get market rate builders into this area? Well, what we have to do is make sure appraised values can match what it costs to build, because none of them could take the loss we take. But HDLP funds help offset that loss. That $750,000 supported 45 units, including 5 that will be built this year. That, I want to point out, is about $69 a month for the 20 years of the mortgage that the homeowners will pay. $69 a month, keep that number in your head. We believe the houses will have a 50-year lifespan, however. Our homeowners have also received $350,000 in homeownership down payment assistance through the Homeownership 80 program, and that is about $47 a month for 20 years. So add 69 and 47. I just want to point out that little over $1 million you've given us over 5 years has had an incredible impact. I would like you to compare that to a little over $1 million per month that's paid in HUD funding for Section 8 housing subsidies. My dream is that we could build new homes and make all these people homeowners, because the average subsidy per month is $593. The average Habitat home payment is $550, $250 principal, $250 property tax and insurance. So think about that, and I think we have to go to President Trump to change that, Mayor Longwell, but you know, he's got a great image of Wichita, so maybe we can do that one day. The other ways that Habitat has benefited from the city of Wichita is in community development block grants, and one of which was particularly remarkable was paving one block within our revitalization area. And we have a little gift for you, Mayor.
Wrap it up right quick.
We have a little gift for you, Mayor, which
We'll
depicts
get you on
that
again
corner.
next week or
All right.
the
Hey,
week
every
after.
week I would have some good news today. Thank you
you.
so much. We appreciate your support of our programs and especially appreciate the families who are in these homes living a happy life.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Councilmember Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. And first, thank you for all the work you and Habitat are doing.
You thanked me last week, Brandon,
I'm
so I
going
had
to keep
to come.
doing it. I'm going to keep doing it. One question, are there any obstacles you are facing that maybe you need some help with or that could help move things along?
Oh, there are always obstacles. Thanks for asking. Land acquisition is really tough, but when you hear the urban infill recommendations, land bank is one of those solutions we hope you'll be considering carefully. The second big obstacle is the state of rental properties in the blighted areas of our community. When code violations are submitted, the progress on following up on those codes is very painfully, dreadfully slow. We know that many of those rental owners are also in financial distress, and more promotion of the rental assistance program, loan program for them might be helpful. And repair and rehab of existing properties, which we're trying to address and fundraise for, but a continued need in our community. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, next speaker, please.
Wendy Aylworth, MABCD Inspections.
Hi, my name is Wendy Aylworth, and I live in Councilman Clendenin's district. I have a home that was built in 1941, and in September 2018, I had a new roof put on it. Without looking, Metropolitan Area Building and Construction Department, which I'll reference as MABCD, labeled my roof inspection result as satisfactory. I want to make a point of this. They did not inspect my roof, but they issued an inspection result labeling it as satisfactory. If you'll please reference the photos that I sent to have each of you have a copy of. You can see there's a 6-inch hole on the front of my roof. Had the inspector even stood in my front lawn and looked up, he would have seen that. There are numerous holes, numerous large gaps. There's missing pieces of drip edge. There are valleys that are cut too short, valleys that are cut improperly, valleys that have nail holes in them covered up with pieces of tape or caulking. This is all brand new. The shingles are set way too far apart. The exposure is far too great. Does not meet code. None of that meets code. Doesn't even meet the manufacturer's installation instructions. I've been told by numerous roofers from other companies that have come out to my house that my roof is so bad it needs to be scraped off and completely replaced. Because MABCD labeled my roof as satisfactory, on paper, my roof is legally good because MABCD inspectors are the government entity which declare what the status of your roof is legally. So my roof is labeled satisfactory. This removes from me all of my consumer protection under Kansas consumer protection laws. The district attorney's office said they can't help me. I have to replace my roof. I have to pay an entire other roofer to come and scrape it off and redo the entire roof. Am I going to have to pay for 2 roofs? Because I saw these holes in my roof, I told the roofer I was unhappy and that I wasn't paying for a roof with holes in it. Because of that, the roofer has placed a lien on my house. I am receiving very threatening letters from his lawyer's office that they will foreclose the lien, which means they will take my house in order to get payment for that roof. Should I have to lose my house because MABCD did not do the inspection on my roof, but instead lied and said that they did and that it's satisfactory? It's up to each one of you whether or not this happens. Do you want me to lose my house because of a lying contractor and a lying MABCD? They did lie. That is a fact. They need to tell the truth so that I don't lose my house. And that is what I'm asking. I have sent you numerous emails. I have made numerous phone calls. I have gone to every place that I can possibly think of to not lose my house. Please put a stop to this. I have learned when I went to MABCD and talked to them about it, they told me, quote, "We don't inspect roofs." Yet they do issue a statement on every roof, and it appears they are making every roof labeled as satisfactory when they have not looked. This is going on all over Wichita. Other people may not have discovered the holes in their roof. But I have looked at many roofs around the city, and I'm finding roof after roof after roof that doesn't meet code, is missing crucial flashing. And that's just from looking at it from the ground. Or if the homeowner wants me to, I'll put up a ladder and look next to the roof. I can't get on the roof. I'm in my 60s. I think that's the reason that the roofer did this to me, because I'm in my 60s. Are you going to let women living alone in this city lose their homes over corrupt contractors and corrupt MABCD? That's my question. I'm asking for your help to make MABC point out that this roof does not meet code so that I don't lose my house. Please, the lien can't hold up in court if they make a truthful statement that my roof does not meet code. Thank you.
Councilmember Clendenin.
Wendy, thanks for coming today. We've talked a few times about this. I wanted to bring Chris Labram up, Director of MABCD, to see if he can answer some of your questions.
Thank you.
For you. Mr. Labram.
Thank you. Wendy.
Mr. Mayor, council members, good morning. Chris Labram, MABCD. Specifically, Councilmember Clendenin, what would you like me to address?
Well, the inspection of the roof, and then basically, I think you guys had gone out there and looked at it and came to a conclusion or two. I don't know.
So, correct. So the roof was inspected. Our inspection process does initially inspect the roof from the ground. We have several key areas that we look at. That does include valleys, flashing, some of the issues there. It was noted that there was a fair amount of cosmetic issues with the roof. There is a problem with that drip edge. It's not a 6-inch hole. I've seen it. I don't think it's nearly that big. And do note that at that point you're talking more about the house than the roof, because the roof is at the edge of the house at that point. So there's not a direct, it's not a direct hole into the home. That was missed by our inspector, and that is unfortunate. He did walk around the house. He obviously missed that piece. The system, as we have it now, the process that we have it now worked. Ms. Aylworth called the department. Our building chief went out, took a look at the roof. He did note that, and he flagged that for correction. So the inspection does still note satisfactory because we have not been able to reopen that by the homeowner. We have added notes to that to show that it is not a complete or a resulted inspection, and that this is an open case, if you will, for lack of a better term.
What's the problem with the inspection?
So the that area of drip edge does need to be corrected.
No, I get that, but why can't you close this? Why can't you mark
So
it?
the homeowner has not allowed the contractor to return and make the corrections. So we contacted the homeowner. Our building chief did a thorough inspection of the home from the attic. Did look at that, noted that and a couple other areas that needed to be looked at from the roof. We do not. We do inspect all roofs. We do not get on the roof without the contractor present. And we will only get on the roof if we have reason to suspect there's a need to do so. So that is correct, that we don't initially get on a roof. In this case, we said we'd get back on the roof, get the contractor out there. Very reputable contractor. This is not indicative of their normal work. I've also spoken with the other roofing companies who, to my knowledge, at least went out and looked at this house. They have all stated the same. They've said it's an ugly roof. It does need some corrections. The bulk of the corrections are cosmetic, and they have all said it's not indicative of what they normally see with that contractor's work. It was a fairly low bid contract as a part of that. So at the end of our final inspection there, or that second inspection, the contractor agreed to make all of the corrections necessary. At one point, the contractor agreed to not charge for the roof. The contractor has continually agreed to not charge for any of the corrections, but that also included a request for a release from warranty or liability.
So the contractor's willing at this point to do all of the work for free, so she wouldn't pay for any roof?
That's what I understand, or at least at one point, Mr. Mayor, that was true. I can't speak for where the contractor would be today. But my understanding is when it came to a point of releasing that contractor from liability, that agreement, that's where the agreement failed, and the contractor, to my understanding, did place a lien on the home.
Vice Mayor, did you have some questions? We'll get back to you, James.
Yeah, I'll let James.
That answers my questions now. Ms. Elworth, you'll get a chance to, I'll ask you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just trying to find out what kind of value we think that these repairs are, but if you're saying that the contractor has agreed to come back and correct them, are there any active leaks that we knew of, or is it just that it's cosmetically unappealing?
To my knowledge, no. Some of those may have, something may have happened since we last looked at the roof in the fall. There are a few areas that do need to be corrected because they could cause long-term issues. From what I've been able to see in pictures, there are areas where some rotting fascia and pieces of the home line up with the roof that do need to be corrected by someone.
What is the inspection fee that someone pays to have a roof?
That depends on the size of the roof.
What would this one?
In this case, I'm not sure what I can't remember what the permit cost was on this.
Do you have a
ballpark?
ballpark?
With $150 or less.
But normally they do a drive-by, or they just do a ground?
No, they do a walk around of the home.
But they don't ever get on the roof?
Unless we have something specific to look at on the roof or suspect an issue.
Okay, thanks. James?
Yeah. Ms. Elworth, you had a couple of clarifications.
I'm sorry, but Mr. Labrum has been misinformed by his subordinates. This roof does not meet code, period. It cannot be labeled satisfactory. If you want to be ethical in the law, it cannot be labeled satisfactory when it does not even come up to the minimum standards of the International Residential Code, which MABCD states on their website they enforce.
Ms. Elworth, I want to specifically ask, I apologize for interrupting,
yes.
But I want to specifically ask, has the contractor agreed to come out and do work? And have you refused at this point to let the contractor?
What happened is I went to MABCD for help. They spent a massive amount of time making me and the other woman over 60 who stood in their lobby asking for help. We wanted the permit information on our own properties, which they refused to give us. They refused to give us the information on our own houses. They said we would have to fill out a Kansas Open Records Act request to get information on our own houses. They stonewalled us. They wasted our time. They refused to give us the information which by law we should have on our own properties. They made us fill out Kansas Open Act requests, and they told us we would have to pay for the information, $7 for every 15 minutes of their time. And finally, after about 2 hours, they finally, I'm answering the question, they finally allowed us to come back to the conference room where the head inspector told me that they do not inspect the roofs. He said, and I quote, "I can't let my guys get up on the roofs because if their foot scrapes some granules off of a shingle, we might get sued."
So, Ms. Elworth, did the contractor agree to come back and make repairs at no cost?
No, the contractor lied to me over and over and over in emails. He lied, saying that he did not pull my roof off in the rain, as my neighbors said that he did.
Well, did he?
We're talking about coming back to do the repairs.
Yeah, coming back to do the repairs.
He eventually, at MABCD's request, told them evidently that he would come and make repairs. However, Road and Roofing has, and I have an email from them stating this roof cannot be repaired. The roof is too bad.
Right.
When you have shingles that are far set apart from each other, that they don't even meet manufacturer's instructions.
James,
you
why
can't
don't you
repair that.
set up a meeting with Ms. Elworth, MABCD, and the contractor, and get everyone in the room and try and get this resolved?
Yeah, the roof can't be repaired. That's
All right, thank you.
We will do that, Mayor. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, next item.
Consent agenda items 1 through 14.
Any items that need to be pulled for discussion or clarification? Seeing none, I move that we approve consent agenda items 1 through 14.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Cast your vote. Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Report of the Board of Bids and Contracts dated April 15th, 2019.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, City Council members, Hannah Lang, Department of Finance. Today I present to you the April 15th Board of Bids formal bid report. First engineering bid we have is sanitary sewer lagoon rehabilitation to serve Fairway Meadow Edition. Recommendation is to defer to April 22nd Board of Bids meeting. Next engineering bid we have is a tied project, a water distribution system tied with sanitary sewer to serve Willow Creek East 3rd Edition. Recommendation is Dutton Construction and Plumbing for aggregate total of $162,236. Next engineering bid is a tied project of water distribution system tied with sanitary sewer to serve Country Hollow 2nd Edition. Recommendation is Meese Construction for an aggregate total of $159,578.50. Next engineering bid is Turn Lane at 29th Cadillac Lake 2nd Edition. Recommendation is Pearson Construction for $55,417. First purchasing bid we have is Scissor Style 50K recess vehicle lift. Recommendation is deferred to the April 22nd Board of Bids date. And the last purchasing bid we have is Picnic Park Shelters redirect award to Port Corp for $242,466. That's all the bids, and with that I'll stand for any questions.
Anyone have any questions on any of the awards? Seeing none, I would move that we approve the awards as mentioned.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any other discussion? Cast your vote. Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, next item.
Design Build Amendment Number 3 for entertainment venue and multi-sport stadium.
Good morning, Mayor, City Council members. Paul Gunzelman with Public Works and Utilities. This morning I'm going to present on the guaranteed maximum price number 3 for the entertainment venue and multi-sport stadium. Here is a quick view of the site from the camera that I pulled off yesterday afternoon or yesterday morning, showing the progress of construction on the site. And a quick recap of the contracts to date. In December of 2018, you approved the design build contract with the J.E. Dunn EB team. In January 2019, you approved the contract with IFG for Owner's Representative Services. And in February, you approved Design Build Amendment Number 1. And in March of 2019, Design and Build Amendment Number 2. As a recap of guaranteed maximum price number 1, site utilities was included within that package, and most of those have been completed. Sanitary sewer lines are in place. They are working on the storm sewer lines as we speak. Mass grading has begun. Playing field walls, dugouts, and tunnels to the dugouts, and providing ADA accessibility. As you can see in the pictures, playing field walls, the upper right is the tunnel or the dugout along the third base line, and then the lower right picture is forming up for the access tunnel to that dugout. Guaranteed maximum price 2 included mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, playing field including the irrigation and drainage, concrete, structural steel, and scoreboard. An allowance was within that GMP. We have put that out to bid again. We have looked at the size of it as well as some other aspects of it, and that is out to bid again. So we'll get the results of that later this month. As far as the design progress this past month, we have worked on the alignment of McLean Boulevard, continue to work on clubhouse and team areas, concessions, technology systems, and the exterior appearance. Regarding McLean Boulevard, I've worked with PEC on the alignment of McLean Boulevard, and as you can see, adjacent to the stadium, the McLean is moved to the west, which allows for development along the east side of McLean between it and the river. And then as you continue north of the stadium, McLean Boulevard shifts east to what are the existing northbound lanes and then transitions back to the intersection at Douglas. McLean, as depicted, will be one lane in each direction, and we do show some parking. However, we are still working on that as we move into the design phase. Regarding the intersections, I want to speak about the transition of those a little bit. This is McLean at Maple, showing the north approach to the intersection. Currently, there are 3 lanes southbound. It includes 2 through lanes. Let me back up. It includes a left turn lane, dedicated left turn lane, a through lane, and then the outside lane could either be a through or right movements. And then there are 2 northbound lanes that carry through the intersection. We are proposing to reduce the intersection width to still keep a southbound dedicated left turn lane, and then reduce take out the through lane and make the outside lane a through and right turn lane. And then we would only carry 1 lane northbound through the intersection as you get north of Maple. That decreases the width, allowing for better pedestrian flow, easier flow to reduce the width to cross. Similar at the north end of McLean Boulevard at Douglas Street. Again, it has the same lane configuration as was at Maple. We propose to reduce the northbound lane by 1 lane, so we'll have a dedicated left turn lane and then a right through lane. And again, we'll be carrying 1 lane southbound through the intersection. We will, once we have we will continue to work on the parking areas, and once we have that determined, then we will move forward with the planning process and complete that. And at this time, I am going to turn it over to Schaefer, Johnson, Cox, and Fry with Shannon Bohm and Terry Wiggers, and they will walk you through the stadium. There has been a lot of work that has been completed since the initial renderings were rolled out in January. The DLR group and Schaefer, Johnson, Cox, Fry have done a lot of work since then, and I will turn it over to Shannon Cherry.
Good morning, Mayor, Council. It's a pleasure to stand in front of you today. It's pretty exciting to see the pictures and actually drive by the site and see the work that is occurring. know that we are actually in many phases of the design right now. There's construction drawings, structural drawings that are completed to be able to allow the contractor to work on the foundations and order steel. And then we're also in the design process where we are still firming up some of the design. We've had the opportunity over the last couple months to meet with several different groups. Of course, we've met with the Delano Group, the district advisory boards, and we continue to meet nearly weekly with the oversight committee and looking at the input that we have received and how we can continue to improve the design and meet the budget. So we're excited to show you where we are at today. We also are working with the city. We have to meet the local building codes as well as the minor league baseball codes and the requirements of the Pacific Coast League. So we are taking that into account as we move forward with the design.
Well, we've spent a lot of time working towards the harmonious existence with the Delano District and the river. This first plan shows the context relative to the roundabout in Delano, the context of the 3 bridges that will feed it, with the pedestrian bridge near the center field area and the Lewis Street Bridge in the southeast corner of the stadium. You can also see in the gray some of the potential development areas around it. The ones that show up in white are the actual parts of the stadium project. If you look at the floor plan, you'll see in the upper left the Delano main entrance gate from Delano as you walk from the roundabout. Out upper right is the center field gates, which will relate directly to the pedestrian bridge and the walk down from Douglas Bridge. And then straight on the south, where we're showing quite a bit of parking, is the south main gate, which if you came across the Lewis Street Bridge, that would be the entrance you would use. You can see that it has a 360-degree concourse, all at grade. In addition to that, you see the blue bowl, which seats 6,000 seats. There's quite a bit of change between the concourse, since it is a bowl, and the street level. So we've highlighted the concourse level areas in tan for you, and the areas in gray are actually at street level. And you'll notice that the right field building is actually a split level, so it has entrances both on the street and on the concourse, which houses the team store, the museum, the team offices, and then a rooftop terrace on top. Go ahead. Next slide. Go ahead. Okay. Whoops, no, back up, sorry. Up on the upper level, on the third base side, is a club that seats about 250 with 175 seats outside, press box behind home plate, and then there are 13 suites. And then on the far right end is a party deck down the first base line, and what projects towards the south is the elevator lobby and entrance. And then you'll see that the upper level team store is in the darker, our team offices are in the dark blue, and the light blue is the roof deck that looks out to the ballpark, to the plaza, and to the river from there. You'll also notice we've got about 136 parking spaces on the south side. The west side is private team player parking when they're gone traveling on the road. And then there's some parking related to the retail over there along McLean.
So this view is the picnic and tiered seating area. If you are walking in, this would be from the right field concourse. Note in this view that there is a variety of ways spectators can enjoy the ball game. So certainly the 6,000 fixed seats, but also notice that there's some high top table rail seating just at the foreground of this picture, and then either some picnic type tables or similar tables. We also have the club and suites and loge boxes too, as well as berm seating. So there's many different ways that spectators can enjoy going to the ballpark and watching a ball game.
I might mention one of the things that is not shown in these views is some of the shading elements. We haven't gotten to the design of those. So like that last slide, you see those picnic areas. We're still working on some of those shading elements in the further concourse areas. This is a view from the first base party deck. Seat can handle about 200 to 250 looking back towards home plate. One of the things I want you to notice, not only a variety of experiences, but the comfort of the spectators. We have developed very deep overhangs that will shade many of the spectators when they're at the stadium. So this is a 22-foot long overhang on both sides, home base as well as first base side, or third base, excuse me.
Moving to the exterior of the building, this is a rendering of the corner of Sycamore and Maple Street. And this is actually the lighted area is where the batting cages are, so behind that. And the product that we are using is a luminous or a translucent panel that will give the opportunity maybe to even add some color at that corner. Note the parking that is fenced. That's where, as Terry mentioned, the team will have the opportunity to park, and we're looking at doing some type of decoration, art work on that fence to make that corner interesting.
This is the entrance as you come across the Lewis Street Bridge and approach the south entrance. This is that entrance lobby. It has ADA elevators in it, deep overhang. Notice to the right of that is a wall that we're developing that will have kind of a professional baseball history of Wichita. Those are the names of all the teams that have occurred in Wichita, and we're working on ways to emphasize how long they were in Wichita and how far back they went as well. Also in red we're kind of marking some areas for potential art. We've been working with artists and have met with the Design Council and talked a lot about potential for art. And some of that we're incorporating into the architecture. Other parts of it will be standalone art as well. So we're in the process of developing that right now.
The Wichita letters that will be lit are about 14 feet high. And this is in response to, or this elevation, when we had the public meetings, there was a lot of interest in what the south elevation would look like. And if there was, as if you were driving over Kellogg, there may be, over the bridge, there's glimpses to the parking lot. And if we wondered and were asked, is there something you can do to make that an exciting vision? And so this is a south elevation.
One of the things we're doing on this project, we're using BIM software to design it from the beginning, which is 3D. So as we've gone along, we're able to look at it in 3D. And so those first 5 views were rendered quite a bit. The next group are straight out of our Revit software, so they don't have a lot of people and trees and stuff. They're more the base model that we're building from.
This is if you walked in the River Plaza entrance and looked out across the field, this is what you're going to see with the fixed seats of 6,000. And then you can directly in the center see the press box as well as the club and the suites to each side. Notice that there is quite a bit of shading, as Terry mentioned, with the overhangs. So that was one of our goals, is to provide shading and make it more comfortable for the fans as they attend events here.
When you walk in the Delano entrance on the third base side, this is the concourse looking back towards home plate. This is also one of the areas we're still working on some shading opportunities there. There's a berm to the left that you'll see in some of the other views, but you can see how wide the concourse. You'll notice that the upper level is built over the concourse, which allows all of that concourse to be fully shaded throughout the day and evenings games.
Also note or think about that the concourse, although it's over 30 feet wide, the team will use this concourse. They'll set it up with kiosks or maybe some different interactive events. So it will be animated for different events that they hold at the stadium. And you can see the concourse width here, again, the 30 feet, a nice height. One of the great advantages of this type of design for the stadium, if you think about it, the rows actually are top loaded, so you go down to the different rows to your seats. But if you think about you're watching the game, you want to jump up and grab something from the concessions, you can do that and really never miss what's going on in the field, so you'll always have a good view of the field from the concourse area.
As you went down that walk, you were looking back towards the area behind home plate, which is a food court. This is a view looking towards the west-southwest into the food court. We took all the umbrellas off the table and everything to see the space. It has a great opportunity for incorporation of graphics or art in that space and can be a very active space. And so this is the same space standing towards the back of it, looking towards the downtown skyline and down the right field concourse as well. And you can see up above the press box walkway there with some opportunities. The red demarks, again, the art, so there's a possibility of developing some art along there, graphics as well.
We think this can be a very dynamic space. Just envision that there's a lot of people there standing, eating, and maybe a band's playing, and you have the upper level and the lower level, and everyone's enjoying themselves. So we think this is really going to be used quite a bit. This view is you were inside the stadium looking out towards, if you exited, you'd be exiting to the River Plaza. So this is the team store and museum building, again, that would be accessible from the concourse level. Also start to notice some of the design. The Delano entrance tends to be more reflective of the historic nature of Delano, and when we've moved around to the riverside, that you have more of a contemporary feel with the materials that are utilized, shading, and then also some of the steel, the black steel, which is very contemporary.
So this is a view from that patio party deck above the store, looking down into the field. This area has phenomenal views, all about 270 degrees to the west, north, and back downtown. And from the view from there looking downtown is unbelievable. The river in the foreground with the city skyline behind it. Again, very much paying attention to shade, but this will be a really popular spot.
And this is the suites. There's 13 suites. Notice that there is fixed seating. There's 8 seats, or no, I believe 12 seats outside of each suite. And then somewhat unique to our stadium here in Wichita is that there's going to be a patio area between the big overhead doors that open into the suites and the fixed seats. So I think it'll be able to be used for a multitude of events and in different ways. So I think we're very excited about what these suites will be.
Also notice down below, loge boxes at the top of the seats that are available, a lot of different opportunities there, and drink rails. So there's a lot of standing room only type opportunities as well as seating opportunities in the stadium.
Again, drink rails have good views to the event or game going on.
This is the club on the third base side. It seats about 250. There's about 175 seats outside. You can see there's an ADA platform. It's actually large enough. We only need 4 ADA spaces, so there's going to be an opportunity there. We're looking at maybe putting those upward sectional doors in the center base so you can actually step outside from the club as well. You might notice the right end looks a little distorted. Our camera view is a little bit too close, so it's not really that steep up there.
Right. And this is a view from the club seating to the skyline of Wichita out across the field. So nice interaction between the stadium and looking downtown.
And looking back towards the first base side, a couple things you might notice there. The shade pattern right there is a 6 o'clock start of game time, so you can see how that shade really works with those deep overhangs. Also, just beyond the dugout there is another handicapped area. We actually have a third tunnel that feeds down there, so handicap can literally sit at the front row at field level. Also, you'll see handicap along the top of the seats as well. Also, each suite and club also has handicap, so we have full opportunity for handicap throughout the stadium.
This is the Delano entry plaza. You can see that, again, it reflects more of the nature of the historical nature of Delano. Also, there's this entrance has more green space, trees. Again, looking at creating some paving patterns and maybe the medallion insets that are included in the sidewalks around Delano.
A little better view from the Sycamore Maple intersection looking at the building. You'll see a couple of different brick colors that reflect many of the bricks that are in the Delano district, a pattern that kind of breaks up that Sycamore elevation as well as the massing. Well beyond there, the one area is the dock area, and it'd also be where broadcast trucks would be parked, et cetera. It's kind of tucked back in that far area beyond the This area is basically the clubhouse and the batting cage that you're looking at in the foreground. And then you can see the walkway for the press box above that looks down into the food court.
Just a straight-on view of the south elevation, which we spoke about earlier, but actually the scale of it is quite large. It will be lit at night, so I think this will be a very nice entrance and view.
Shannon mentioned earlier the flyover on Kellogg. This is a view as you're just about past the river, but you can see the reason and the real emphasis with the Wichita letters will really be pronounced from that view and kind of define that south facade and elevation entrance. Also, there's an element to kind of mark the center field plaza as well to the right. You'll notice how the retail buildings, this thing's nestled in amongst them, so you're going to experience it a little differently on day one, but once those retail buildings get in, it'll have a whole different feel to it.
And this is the view from the River Plaza, again, the more contemporary feel with the materials and steel. Notice the team store is accessible from the plaza entrance, so before an event, the main gates are open. You can go into the team store. It'll actually be open during the day. Stop by there and pick up something. The museum, again, is adjacent to the team store, and it's accessible as well. Use of a reddish mingle of brick with some black brick, and the steel, I think, gives us a nice entrance. Note on the right side of the photo, there is the opportunity for a development building. Maybe it's a coffee shop or ice cream parlor with some outside seating too.
One of the things we didn't mention is that we're working on a second set of gates in this area of the ballpark where we can actually, behind the team store, close gates there, and just beyond the batter's eye in this center field plaza could be available during the week. If you want to go over there and grab lunch and sit out there and look into the ballpark, you'd be able to do that.
So that's a quick walkthrough around the stadium. I believe Paul has some additional information to share on GMP3.
Thank you, Terry and Shannon, for walking through that. Before I get into GMP3, I wanted to mention, and I failed to as I showed you the pictures of the construction. I have heard from many folks when I've been out on site or out and about that the professionalism and the quality of work that has been completed thus far has been outstanding. So I wanted to thank the J.E. Dunn and EB team and other contractors that have been, and the workers that have been involved in that thus far. So now on to guaranteed maximum price number 3. This will get us to about 70% of the contracted work that would be out that we have taken bids on. GMP3 includes masonry, metal wall panels, roofing and sheet metal, glass and glazing, drywall, and dewatering wells. As with the others, there was the invitation to bid was issued March 20th. There was a pre-bid meeting held March 27th, and there was good involvement in that. Again, approximately 25 folks attending, and then bids were due early April. They went through the best value selection as we have done on other GMPs. As you can see on this slide, some of the items came under what was estimated cost. The masonry, metal wall panels, roofing and sheet metal, and drywall were under the estimates. And then the glass and glazing and dewatering wells were a little over the estimated cost. However, we have, overall, it was about $1.5 million under what was estimated originally. So rolling that in with the trade partners from the previous sheet slide, the allowances for dewatering system utility connections, which we are still working through that design, the windows at the press box, vision lights at doors, mirrors, cladding of the batter's eye, and temporary heat for masonry if needed. And then the other fees, insurance bonds, and design builder fee. This total GMP is just over $11 million. And And as we roll that into the total budget to date with Phase 1 services of design, GMP 1, GMP 2, and then adding in the center of the slide GMP 3, we have a subtotal for the stadium of just under $50 million. There is an estimated remaining scope, the 30% left of just under $19 million, and that gets us up to a projected total of $68,755,249. Compared to the budget that we've been, our goal of $69 million, we are under with this GMP of approximately $700,000. There's still work to be done with the other 30% that still needs to be designed and out for bid, so we still need to be diligent as we move forward. With that, it is recommended that the City Council approve the design build amendment for GMP 3 and authorize the necessary signatures, and I will stand for any questions that you might have.
Questions at this time? Seeing none, we'll go out to the public. I'm sorry. You were just a little slow.
I was a little slow, sorry. Just to be clear, Paul, what we're approving today has nothing to do with the alignment of McLean and Maple and Douglas. You're just giving us an overview of what it could look like. That will come back for separate approval.
I would like to get that set today so that we can continue on with the design. We need to have it constructed by opening day as well. So the alignment, I would like to have set. We will still continue to work on the parking areas. We would work on that with the development to the north and define that, but the alignment is the critical portion now, so that we can get that set, as well as begin design on the 36-inch water main that needs to be relocated between Maple and Texas.
Does that design also includes bollards for the intersections to close down the street for events?
It could, yes. Yes.
It could, or is it does?
It will, yes.
It will.
We will include that.
Okay.
So all you need is approval of
alignment.
The alignment, and that's it. Vice Mayor?
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I've got two questions. First of them, I'll piggyback on Councilmember Fry's question. Do we have current traffic counts on McLean?
We do. There are 10,000 vehicles per day in that section of McLean Boulevard.
Okay. And what do we usually suggest for a two-lane road?
I am comfortable with that amount, that number. There's very few access points, so looking at the traffic.
So they won't be turning off a lot.
Yes,
so.
Correct. And then the intersections will still have that additional capacity at those, even reducing by one lane, we still have the turning movements through that, to accommodate that additional traffic.
Another question, we had a workshop here a few weeks ago talking about public art and the aesthetic parts of public buildings like this. Have we, as you went through those different budget numbers, have we got a specific number for aesthetics for the ballpark and the art element of what, I was just curious what % of the project we were looking at?
We do not. We are working through that right now. Some of those elements that you have seen that were shown today that Terry and Shannon had pointed out, some of those are included within the contract with the design build team. They had an allowance in for some of the signage and that type of those items. So we are marrying up those, trying to determine what is included within that and then what would be above and beyond that. Okay. So we are working through that now. That will be a discussion at our oversight committee meeting tomorrow.
So we really don't have a matrix today to decide what's art and what's just part of the building or the architecture.
We are working through that.
Okay.
Yes, they're working on that. Part of those items they have identified that were already in the budget. There are others that, additional aesthetic improvements that aren't. So we are working through that.
Okay, thanks.
Mayor, if I could, Vice Mayor, we have preliminary estimates for all of the art elements that have been suggested at this point and that were shared with the Design Council in terms of the elements themselves. we're probably just slightly over 1%, but that's without factoring in the allowances that had already been in the budget. So it's a little in excess of 1%, so we may be close to that 1% target when everything is calculated.
Okay. Councilmember Clayco.
Thank you. I want to go back to the McLean alignment. I take it this means that both developers, the ballpark developers and the developers at the church property are in agreement with that alignment?
Yes, I have met with the developers of the church property and showed them that initial alignment, and they were good with that. They had requested to look at the parking on the west side of McLean, so that is what we had added as a concept. I think as we go through design, we can further refine that to see if we can get additional parking in there, and we'll continue to work with them on that.
Thank you, Paul.
Just to follow up, there were two options listed there as it relates to which one are we talking about?
The two options I think you're referring to, Councilmember Fry, is
where the easement comes in?
right-of-way options.
Okay.
And that is, part of that is that the west curb line will be moving east, which would, could allow for some more development space. However, once we get the parking areas adjusted, we will adjust that right-of-way line accordingly.
So then,
right-of-way line.
So then we'd come back for approval and we'll decide one of those options based on that, or are we legally?
The options are only to keep the right-of-way as it is at the development north of the church, or we move that right-of-way line to match 20 feet behind back a curb. That's all that's showing.
Okay.
So that will be determined as we go through the platting process.
Gotcha.
But it doesn't change the alignment of the road.
All right, thank you.
Councilmember Clendon.
Thanks, Paul. So I have a lot of people from South Wichita that drive straight up McLean. They used to commute in the morning or for a leisurely drive if they're coming into downtown. Just want to clarify, you feel like going down to 2 lanes, we're not going to jam up that area because there are not a lot of turnoffs. It's just through traffic. I just want to make sure that that is correct. That's the way I'm explaining it to people, but I need to make sure that I'm explaining it correctly.
That is correct. You are explaining that correctly. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, if there's no other questions, we'll go out to the public. Anyone like to address the council on this agenda item? Just in case anyone's as slow as Councilmember Fry, we'll give it a few seconds.
I was on time today, by the way.
We'll bring discussion back to the bench. Councilmember Clayco.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ensure that when we do the motion, whoever does that motion, if they would be willing to actually state that we are voting on the alignment of McLean today, because I want to make sure that the public understands that.
Thank you for that motion. Is there any other?
No, I was just, I'm going to let Councilmember Blubaugh make that motion.
Any other discussion? The only thing I'll mention is that the president of minor league baseball, when he was in town recently out at the site, commented that maybe the finest concrete work that he's ever seen in the construction of a baseball stadium. And he's seen a lot of baseball stadiums go up, and so quite the compliment to the construction team. Everyone's still amazed, even with a tight timeline, how fast that they're able to bring everything together and get to this stage of it. The foreman at the job overheard the president of minor league baseball make that comment, and he came up and shared that he was pretty proud of his crew and had someone on the laser and sighting that in as they were pouring the concrete, and if they even got a 32nd of an inch off, they tweaked that all the way down the line to ensure that it was something that, generations can take pride in. I guarantee you the EB crew and the DLR crew are going to talk about for generations what they were able to do on this incredible build. So thank you to the construction teams for the work that you've performed so far, and we appreciate certainly how fast you've been able to do it, and not always the best of weather. So I know they've been working hard. Vice Mayor, are you ready to make a motion?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to take the staff's recommended action to approve the design build amendment, authorize the necessary signatures, and agree to the proposed McLean alignment. Is that satisfactory?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Cast your vote. Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Tourism Business Improvement District 2020 Scope of Services.
Mayor, Council, John D'Angelo, Arts and Cultural Services. What's before you today is the Tourism Business Improvement District Scope of Services and their budget for 2020. Each year we have to bring this before you before May 15th and for your approval so that this can move forward. The 2018 performance actuals are on the screen, as you can see. We had a 58-to-1 return on investment. This work is also being done through Smarty, which is an organization that we've been using since the tourism tax was passed in 2015. It's the same numbers so that we have consistency. The group sales, again, are reflected here, showing you the economic performance of the 2018, I apologize. Leisure performance, again, room nights was 100,000. Looks like we missed a zero. In 18, the actuals were 125,528. The goal for 19 is going to be 140,000 for leisure. Our incremental room nights for group sales is 16,000. As you can see, we kind of came in a little under that with 11,540. Again, we're going to stay with the 16,000 room nights for our group sales for 2019. Estimated revenue for 19 is 3.1 million. The leisure market is about 1.6. The proposed group marketing is, again, about 962,000, includes 375 in the reserve fund for sports initiatives to move from the leisure marketing. The proposed general expenses are about 510,000. The estimated 2020 leisure marketing is about 90 million. The 2019 for group is 5.8. The total carryover, just so you understand, for 2018, because there was a carryover of 400,000, 100,000 that'll be used for leisure in 2019, and then 300,000 of that will be added to that strategic event commitment fund, so that they can, again, as groups are being bid on, that we have the opportunity to make bids. I know Maureen's here. I think she's going to say a few words. Susie's, I think, traveling, so I'll let her speak, and then I'm happy to answer questions.
Good morning, Mayor, City Council members, City Manager. I'm Maureen Hofferning, Vice President at Visit Wichita, 515 South Main. And I'm here on behalf of Susie Santo, our President and CEO. Susie is in Asheville, North Carolina today. She's presenting at a travel industry CEO forum. And we are requesting your approval for our 2020 Tourism Business Improvement District scope of service and budget. As you know, we have a TBID advisory board that governs the TBID, and we have been meeting with them in a series of meetings since the end of January, reviewing the 2018 research and planning for 2020. So the plan that you have in front of you, the scope of service and the budget, was approved by that board on March 27th. As John said, we do research each year with SMARI, Strategic Marketing and Research Insights, and we started that in 2015 when the TBID started. Very happy that the 2018 results were very positive, with 125,000 incremental room nights and 85,000 incremental economic impact with that ROI of 58 to 1. And again, I want to emphasize it's incremental. So what SMARI does is look at what would have come otherwise without the TBID dollars, and then the incremental impact. So again, without these dollars, we would not have that economic impact. So we looked at that research and changed up some of our marketing for 2019 and created the 2020 plan. For 2020, we have a year-long program of work that is responsive to travel planning periods as well as the product offerings that we have in Wichita. And we're using 3 media platforms: television, radio, and digital. We have the full program in our target markets of Western Kansas and Central Kansas, Kansas City, Oklahoma City, and Tulsa. And then our digital offerings are offered on a broader geographic basis, including Missouri, Nebraska, Oklahoma, and northern Texas. And then we have put some money in for 2020 for a new target market that would have the full program. That market is yet to be identified. We will do that through research this year. It could be in our traditional drive market, or it could be one of our one-stop flights. On the group side, which of course consists of both conventions and sports, we have a plethora of sales activities that are planned for 2020: sales missions, sales events, trade shows, direct marketing. That's all included in the budget. And then we will also continue with our Meeting Planner Advisory Council, which is 30 very influential, knowledgeable meeting planners from around the country who are helping guide some of our initiatives as well. So we request your approval of our 2020 scope of services and budget, and we'll stand for questions. Thank you.
Questions? Vice Mayor?
As John shared with us on the group numbers were down significantly. Did you mention a countermeasure or a different approach for that to try to get the numbers back up?
So there's several parts to that, but as you know, we launched our sports department last fall, and that was responsive to the TSE sales event strategy for sports. So definitely we see that moving incremental room nights on the group side as we move ahead. And also, again, with the Meeting Planner Advisory Council, they have really counseled us on creating the one-on-one relationships. And so all of our sales initiatives are really designed to build those relationships that are so key to be successful in this market. And I also want to mention that the 16,000 is a very aggressive goal against a base of 22,000. So every year, of course, achieving that base of 22 plus the 16.
We like aggressive goals. We were thinking about increasing it.
We look forward to increasing in 2021.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll go out to the public. Anyone like to address the council on this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll bring discussion back to the bench. I think you can sit down. I don't think you have to stand up there.
Thank you.
We don't want you to be any more of a target than I'll make you. Any discussion? I fully recognize how important this is to growing our opportunities in Wichita, and so we look forward to you next year coming and hitting all of those goals. And I would move the City Council receive, approve, and file the Tourism Business Improvement District 2020 scope of services and budget.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Cast your vote. Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Construct new police station.
Did that short-term employee just block your way, Chief?
I didn't want to knock him down. Good morning, Mayor and City Councilors. It is my pleasure to be here. I have a permanent smile on my face today to present this to you. I think it's our second most exciting project in the city that may be happening this year. A little background. This is, we're here to talk about the Patrol East substation and station rebuild. As many of you know, the department operates a decentralized station program, and the oldest of which is the East Station that was built in 1989. It's located on Edgemore near Kellogg. And the city limits have changed substantially since then, as well as that patrol area. Currently there is over 100 officers that work out of that space that was initially designed for about 30. A couple of the issues that I'll hit on that why we are here, why we need this new station, is one is that there's workstations. Even though we have over 100 officers that work out of there 24/7, there's only really 3 workstations for those officers. So frequently they are there waiting for space, as well as there is no private interview rooms for victims or suspects, and conversations can be often heard by all, severely limiting privacy during conversations. The current station also does not accommodate much of the current or future technology. I always forget to forward these, I'm sorry. That's the current workstation where the workstations where the officers work from. We also added the Axon clerks to the different substations, which also kind of took away from some of the front area, the front lobby. It is substandard and does not really present a professional image. Supplies are stored in the locker rooms and pretty much any open space in the building, and only a small number of officers have lockers, which means that most come to work in uniform, and if they, which happens with some frequency, have something spilled on them or bodily fluids during their shift, they must go home to change. That is not an option for them at the police stations. And as you know, our police officers have one of the toughest jobs, and I think it's important for us to welcome them to a workplace with a nice facility that meets the needs of a 21st century police department, and send them out the door and start their shift with a smile on their face. This is their briefing room. This is kind of the all multi-purpose room, break room, package your property and evidence room, and meeting room at that station that really is used for just about everything. Off-street parking is often inadequate, and as I've mentioned to you before, squads and personal cars are often vandalized. The council approved a design study back in January of 2017. It was conducted with local and regional design professionals out of Wichita and Chicago. One of the individuals that was involved was amazed, that has been working on police stations for over 20 years, was amazed at the amount of staff that work out of this building and the condition of it. The location, the proposed location is next to the current site because one reason was a lot of the infrastructure is there, the gas pumps are there. Those alone are a $250,000 investment, and we will be able to currently utilize those as we move forward, as well as the existing parking lot. We found success in integrating public space on police grounds to create that atmosphere, that friendly atmosphere where people want to come. It's the best practice to have a PD next to a park as well throughout the country. We added, so at the lower end of the design there, the 17 public parking spaces, we increased those so that individuals that want to use the park can park there, and there'll be a sidewalk going back to the playground and other areas of the park. This building will modernize operations and create a welcoming and professional community-centric facility. And I know this building will make us more effective, efficient, and operationally superior. As you can see in the conceptual plan, there is lockers. Everybody will have a locker, as well as workspace and increased parking. The 2016 through 25 adopted CIP includes funding for this project. The recommended action is that the City Council approve the project initiation, adopt the binding resolution, and approve the release of the design, RFP, and authorize necessary signatures. And that concludes my
Questions? Councilmember Fry.
Thank you, Chief Ramsey. Just, we want to be clear on something. It says $7 million for this project, and that's pretty significant when you look at it per square footage cost. I mean, that's more than any Class A office building in Wichita, and you don't have land costs in this $7 million since you're using park. Does that number include the equipment, the fixtures, the design, and construction? Is that all in $7 million?
Correct, that is all inclusive.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Pretty simple, Chief.
Thank you.
We'll go out to the public. Anyone like to address the council on this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll bring discussion back to the bench. Chief, I suppose it'd be asking too much to someday just live in a city where everyone behaves themselves and we don't need to spend so much money on battling crime issues? You think that's a possible goal? We'll work on that. Wouldn't it be nice? If there's no other discussion, I'll turn this over to Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. When this went out, I think I only received 2 emails that had issue, and after speaking with those, one was resolved. So this seems to be favorable for the neighbors and the community. I think it's great, and I've toured Patrol East twice now, and both times it's smaller than it looks in those pictures. So this is a much-needed upgrade. So with that, I would move that the City Council approve the project initiation, adopt the bonding resolution, approve the release of the design RFP, and authorize the necessary signatures.
Second, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Cast your vote. Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Wichita Employees Retirement and Police and Fire Retirement Systems Actuarial Valuation Reports as of December 31st, 2018.
Good morning, Mayor, members of the City Council. Mark Manning with the Department of Finance. Today, we would like to present the results of the 2018 actuarial valuation reports for the city's 2 pension systems. These reports provide an annual update on the financial health of these systems, and they also set the contribution rates, in this case for the year 2020. As has been noted in the past at these presentations, the financial health of the city's pension systems is in fact very good. That's attributable primarily, I would say, to 2 things, and that is our very disciplined investment approach and the City Council's prudent policy of each year financing the required actuarial contributions. And with that, I'd like to introduce our principal and consulting actuary, Pat Beckham of Cavanaugh McDonald Consulting, LLC. She has prepared these reports and will present a brief summary of the results.
Good morning, Mayor, member of the council members. My mouth isn't working right. I live in Omaha, Nebraska. As Mark said, I'm with Cavanaugh McDonald. Omaha's a big baseball town, and I really was impressed with your new stadium. It's exciting, and I look forward to going to a baseball game there next year when I'm back. We are going to hit the highlights of the actuarial valuation. Please ask any questions as we go through. The retirement systems, unlike Social Security, are funded on an actuarial basis. That means while people are actively working, contributions are going into a trust fund, accumulating with investment earnings, with the intent that there's sufficient assets when they retire to pay the benefit for the rest of their lives. The challenge is we don't know exactly the amount of those benefit payments, when they'll start, how long they'll be paid. So we use actuarial assumptions to help us estimate those events, which then drive the amount, the timing, and the duration of the payments. But obviously, those are assumptions, and actual experience will unfold at times differently, particularly investment return. So these are very long-term obligations. We can't just set it on a course and ignore it for 10 or 20 years. So every year on December 31, we stop everything. We measure liabilities, which again are the benefit payments that are expected to be paid to current members on December 31, and then we measure assets. That provides two important metrics. One's called the funded ratio of the systems. That's assets divided by liabilities. In a perfect world, it would be 100% all the time. It's not a perfect world, and you'll see as we walk through numbers how actual experience impacts those numbers. And then the actuarial valuation sets the contribution rate, again for the fiscal year ending 2 years later. So the December 31, 2018 valuation is setting the contribution rate for 2020. I mentioned that we use actuarial assumptions to help us estimate future benefit payments and then to value those in terms of a current or lump sum value today. That's a critical part of the actuarial work that's performed for the retirement systems. And about at least every 5 years, we do a very deep dive into the actual experience that has occurred compared to what the assumptions anticipated to see if there need to be changes made. We went through that endeavor in 2018, and there were a number of changes to the actuarial assumptions, again, to try to develop the best estimate possible. The most significant change was a change in the investment return assumption. It had been 7.75 for many years. It was reduced to 7.5% in the December 31, 2018 valuation. In a pension plan, you only pay benefits from two sources, contributions or investment income. So if we assume that investment income will come down and be lower in the future, it will tend to drive contribution rates up. Now, we had a number of other changes in assumptions. In particular, the salary increase assumption was also lowered, a lower expectation of price inflation in the future. We adjusted some of the demographic assumptions. So you'll see in a couple of slides what the specific impact on the systems were. Overall results, again, funded ratio, assets divided by liabilities, was impacted by the investment return in 2018. The markets were not kind. 12/31 was an unpleasant measurement date. Return was a negative 6.5%. And remember, the assumption is positive 7.5. And then the assumption changes increased liabilities. So those two together essentially reduce the funded ratio. You will see near the end of this presentation, though, that the Wichita systems are extremely well funded and have been for a number of years. So your funded status is much better than peer systems. The largest survey that's done with large statewide retirement systems shows a median funded ratio of about 72%. But the bottom line is the contribution rates have increased, went up 1.6% for the employees' retirement system and 3% for police and fire. Again, kind of hitting both the investment return for 2018 forced the rate up, as well as the assumption changes for the employees' retirement system. A couple of things to note on this slide. The first row is the contribution rate from the 12/31/17 valuation, which is the 2019 contribution. So for WER, the employees' retirement system, 12.1%, for police and fire, just under 19. And here's the sort of the step-by-step impact. I mentioned the return in 2018 because it was lower than expected. We use a smoothing method so we don't take that full hit at one time, but that kind of a miss on return will force the contribution rate up. So you can see WER went up 1.6, PNF 1.9. And then what happens on the liability side of the house, people retiring, salary increases, has an impact on liabilities. actually a gain for the employee system, an increase for police and fire. And part of that increase for police and fire is a correction when we were looking at the coding on the backdrop, which is a type of retirement for the police and fire system. We found a correction that needed to be made, and that kind of forced that up a little higher than what it would have been. So had we not changed assumptions, we'd be looking at 13.3% for WER and 22.4% for PNF. With the net impact of all the assumption changes, the contribution for WER went up 0.4%. Police and fire went down 0.5%. And just due to payroll amounts, that change, if you sort of added the two together, would be a slight savings of about $38,000. This slide just shows you or translates that increase in the contribution rate, the 1.6 and the 3% for police and fire, into estimated impact in terms of dollars for 2020 based on expected payroll. So about $1.4 million for the employees' retirement system and $2.3 million for police and fire.
That's just this increase next year?
Just the increase.
What's
yes,
the
sir.
total dollar amount that we fund those retirement systems every year?
Yes, sir, Mayor. In 2018, the city contributed approximately $10.1 million to WR and about $14.3 million to PNF. So, what, about $24 million in total?
And that's going to go up about $3.5 million, actually a little more than that, $4 million? 3.7.
In simple math, yes, it'll be netted out by a couple other things. Not all that's general fund, and we'll also reduce the contribution to the pension reserve. But yes, generally you are correct.
Okay, thank you.
A key point on this slide is that the employees are also helping to fund their retirement benefits. So the ongoing cost of the benefit structure for WER is 13% pay. For police and fire, 21.7%. You can see the respective contributions by the members. Leaves the city portion of the sort of ongoing cost, 8.3% for WER and 14.7% for police and fire. And then, again, the unfunded liability is an additional payment. So you're making a contribution to fund the benefit for people who are currently working. That's the way actuarial funding works. And then if we're sort of off target, our funded ratio, you'll see on the last line, is 91% rather than 100%. So it requires an additional contribution to move the system towards fully funding. So I mentioned this earlier. Both of the Wichita retirement systems are extremely well-funded plans. I've worked with the systems over 18 years now. They're just, you know, guys are among the top, in the top 10%. You can see the blue line here is that NASRA, the National Association of State Retirement Administrators survey that has been published for a number of years. And you can see the results there. Again, that's the median for all of those 120 plus plans. The green line is the Wichita Police and Fire Retirement System, and the red line is the Wichita Employees Retirement System. It's always very interesting to me to look at the beginning of this period. Police and fire in particular was dead on with the NASRA median, but over time has done extremely well. As Mr. Manning mentioned, I think that's attributable extremely well governance, including investments, but very importantly, the city's commitment to put the full actuarial contribution in, even when it's difficult. If you look in the media and dig into the details, a lot of the retirement systems or pension plans that are talked about that are having problems with funding have not contributed the amount that the actuarial amount over the last 20 or 30 years. And it's like any kind of retirement or savings, if you don't put the money in, it doesn't work. So again, in summary, the funded ratio for Wichita is extremely strong. commended for, again, making those full actuarial contributions. Contribution rates are going up. There is that inverse relationship when the market is unkind and we're extremely far off from our assumption. It will tend to force contribution rates up. When markets are extremely good, it forces contribution rates down. Trying to manage some of that volatility is, we've been working with the finance department to smooth some of that out. And lastly, just a note, these plans are very mature, as are most defined benefit plans, public defined benefit plans in the United States. And what has happened over 50, 60 years is that the assets have grown much larger in comparison to the payroll. So when there is a miss on the investment side, it gets recouped with payroll contributions as a percent of payroll. And so that's why, a year like this, you can see a swing in the actuarial contribution of almost 2% due to that impact of investment return. So it's just a metric that goes with the system being mature, and it's actually sort of a good thing, because if you weren't well funded, you wouldn't have that kind of volatility. So, but it is a challenge to manage that. And contribution rates are going to be sensitive to what happens on investment return. That's the single most important impact on the contribution rates. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Well, just understand that we take all bad news out on the messenger.
Okay.
Any questions? We'll go out to the public. Anyone like to address the council on this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll bring discussion back to the bench. Councilmember Claycomb.
Yes, I have a question. Yes, thank you. Just to understand, so we were 6.5% below the forecast, right?
Actually, the assumption was plus 7.5.
So we're
it was
15%.
minus 6. You're 14% off.
And that's because we take a snapshot of the market?
Right. That single day measurement, and it was, as I said, if we measured it today, it would look different.
Okay, thank you.
And we do a smoothing where we don't recognize the full impact, because when the market's down, it does tend to bounce back, and when it's up, it'll tend to go down.
Yeah.
We try to smooth that out a little bit.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, I appreciate the information, and I hope that our employees fully understand the impact and appreciate what not only this council but former councils have done to have one of the best retirement systems in the country, and certainly one of the best funded systems in the country. And it does come with a financial impact and a burden, and that doesn't always get much notice or satisfaction when you're at the negotiating table and short-term needs, but it's certainly something that should be recognized, that it's a big investment that we think that has a lot of value, whether everyone sees the value in it on a daily basis or not. And so certainly we appreciate the taxpayers that are funding this, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that certainly have to see value also. And so with that said, I would move that the City Council receive and file the Wichita Employment, Retirement, and Police and Fire Retirement Systems Actuary Valuation Reports as of December 31st, 2018, and approve the 2020 Employer Retirement Fund contribution rates.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any other discussion? Cast your vote. Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, next item.
Community Events 2019 Wichita River Festival.
Mayor, Council, John D'Angelo. What's before you today is the 2019 River Festival licensing report. It's a multiple day celebration from May 31st through June 8th. The city has entered in an MOU with WFI in 2017, and it's a renewable agreement. The MOU points out the in-kind services, permits, licenses, street closures, and the use of WPD. WFI is coordinated with the city departments for licensing and street closures. Douglas from Water to Waco will be closed permanently for the duration of the festival. Approval of the license report will be in lieu of other issuances of individual permits and authorizations. We do it as a blanket. It makes it easier for them to be able to do this festival and the extent. Happy to answer questions.
Questions? Those slow on the button questions? We'll go out to the public. Anyone like to address the council on this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll bring discussion back to the bench. Any discussion? Seeing none, I move that we take staff recommended action.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Cast your vote. Motion passes 6-0. Madam Clerk, next item.
Sunflower Boogie Down Community Event and Alcohol Consumption.
Again, Mayor, Council, John D'Angelo. Central Standard Brewery at 156 South Greenwood has applied for a community event on May 11th. The street closure request was approved April 9th. Area businesses and residents have been notified of the street closure. The code requires that the resolution authorizing the consumption of alcohol on public street defines the location. Staff has reviewed the application for community event and approves it. This is an outline of the location and the street closure and its impact. And I'm happy to stand for questions.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll go out to the public. Anyone like to address the council on this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll bring discussion back to the bench. If this is a boogie down event, we're going to have to hand this off to our youngest council member.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we take staff's recommended action.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Cast your vote. Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Hopping Gnome Brewery Anniversary Party Community Event with Alcohol Consumption.
Again, Mayor John D'Angelo. Hopping Gnome at 1710 East Douglas has applied for a community event permit for May 25th. The street closure request was approved April 9th again. Area businesses and residents have been notified. The code requires this authorization of the resolution for the alcohol to be consumed.
Do we require the council member to attend all of these events?
You can add that requirement. This is just to show you the outline of the location of the proposed event, and I'm happy to stand for questions.
Thank you. It is past my bedtime. Any other questions? Anyone? We'll go out to the public. Anyone like to address the council? We'll bring discussion back to the bench. Again, our young, energetic, and partying council member, Councilmember Johnson.
I learned how to party from you, Mayor. Thank you. I would move that we take staff recommended action.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Cast your vote. Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, next item.
User fee adjustments for water and sewer services.
We were having so much fun there for a second.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Alan King, Director of Public Works and Utilities. As you know, the city's water and sewer services are funded primarily through service charges. The city some time back developed a cost of service analysis model to try to make a fair and equitable relationship between those that are incurring the costs to run the system and the rates that we charge. And we've been coming back with that COSA model to ask for rates each year for the council. Although that cost of service analysis looks at primarily the equity of various service charges, it does not take into consideration that equity as it relates to fees. And fees are part of, although a minor part of, the total revenue associated with the two utilities. So we took the opportunity to revisit those fees to look at, to see how equitable they are, and found that really the ratepayers were subsidizing those that incurred the fees, and that some of these fees had not been changed or updated for a very long time. The utility has a utility optimization team, and we're trying to find savings, both in enhanced revenues and savings in reduced costs, to bring somewhere around $6.5 million per year in efficiencies to the utilities. And that team looked at these fees as a way to potentially become more increase revenues and become more efficient. So what I'd like to do is turn the presentation over to Laura Quick. She's one of the principal members of that utility optimization, and to present to the council the proposed fees as outlined and introduced in the workshop last week. Laura?
I'm Laura Quick, Public Works and Utilities Optimization Program. So as you may recall, we discussed the utility user fees at the council workshop on March 26th. And today we are recommending that you approve the user fee adjustments and place the ordinances on first reading. I will briefly review the highlights from that workshop and the revision process that we've gone through. So our utility cash revenue comes in the form of rates and fees. Rate revenue accounts for about 94% of all of the cash revenue and covers the system-wide costs, producing and distributing water, collecting and treating the wastewater. The rates impact everyone, and those are adjusted annually. Then on the other hand, we have about 6% of our cash revenue that comes from fees for services, and those fees only impact certain customers. We have over 100 different fees for services, such as tapping into the water or sewer system, opening an account, shutting off or locking, shutting off or locking meters on unpaid accounts, and repairing damage to meters and connections. We also have permit fees for specific users that I will go over later. Right now, all these fees are scattered over several different ordinances, and up until now, we really haven't had a process in place to regularly review those. And so as Alan mentioned, some of those have not been adjusted in over 20 years. So the ordinance before you today would accomplish two things. It would adjust the fees to achieve full cost recovery for these individual services, and it would also move all of the fee amounts to one master ordinance for each chapter, one for water, one for sewer, so that we can more easily review those fees regularly. So as I mentioned, the utility fees account for about 6% of our utility cash revenue, which is $6.4 million currently. However, when we reviewed the true cost of service for all of these services that the fees are meant to cover, we found that those services are actually costing about $8 million. So we have been undercharging them by $1.6 million. And as Alan mentioned, that was being subsidized by ratepayers up until January, and our current rates that were approved in January do take these fee increases into account. At the March workshop, we provided detail about how the proposed amount of each fee was determined. We added up staff time, materials, and vehicle charges for each service so that each fee reflects the true cost of service. The Utilities Optimization Program has spent the last several months reaching out to internal staff to gather information about each one of the fees and the services associated with them. And then in February, we began outreach to external stakeholders. I mentioned the permit fees, and the significant ones for this project are the hydrant permits, industrial wastewater discharge permits, and permits and fees associated with the food service establishments with the fats, oils, and grease program. So the hydrant permits are not changing, those fees are not changing, but the industrial wastewater permit fees and the FOG fees, the fats, oils, and grease program fees, needed to be increased significantly to achieve full cost recovery. So we reached out to those customers specifically. We sent letters to all 56 industrial permit holders. We heard back from 2 of them that had questions or comments, and as a result of their feedback, we recommend delaying the effective date of those fee increases for the industrial customers to January 1st of 2020. And that would allow them to account for their higher budgets. We also sent about 1,400 postcards with the proposed fee increases and a request for feedback to the food service establishments that are regulated by the FOG program. Of those 1,400, about 300 also pay a monthly sewer system maintenance fee, because those are establishments that don't have a grease trap in place to provide protection to the sewer. Fog fees were probably the most difficult to increase because they haven't been adjusted since 1995 and needs a significant increase to achieve full cost recovery for the inspection program and the sewer maintenance costs associated with grease control. So as we expected, we received a significant amount of feedback for the fog fees and in particular that monthly grease maintenance fee. And that prompted us to take a closer look at the ordinance and the fee structure. We're currently working with the Kansas Restaurant and Hospitality Association and a small group of restaurant owners to come up with a new fog fee structure that we believe is more equitable and would spread that sewer maintenance cost among more users. It would also phase in the increases over a 4-year period. The ordinance before you today does not change the fog fees. We will continue to work with stakeholders on those, and we'll bring back a recommendation for a new fog fee structure this summer. And then the last component of our outreach was to the Wichita Area Builders Association and the plumbing contractors registered with MABCD to notify them of increases to the tap fees and the main benefit fees, and we did not receive any negative comments from those groups. So then that brings me to our takeaways and next steps. Approving the ordinances before you today would generate a little under $1.3 million in new revenue out of the $1.6 million that we're currently undercharging. The remaining shortage will be recovered after the fog fees are adjusted later this summer. We will continue working with our fog stakeholders to develop that fee structure that will fully recover our costs in a more equitable manner, and we'll bring that ordinance back to you after we've completed some more outreach. And then looking into the future, Public Works and Utilities staff will develop a regular schedule for reviewing these fees so the fees can stay balanced with our cost recovery needs. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Questions? Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. Just trying to get some clarification on some of these. I see some of the ones that are 3- and 4-fold increases are these damage charges, like the damage setter charge from $135 to $625, and then contractor damage service repairs $300 to $1,545. Just trying to get a little more clarification on those.
What I have, all I have prepared for the actual cost analysis is an example. It's a different example. And maybe somebody else would have some information from my team about that particular cost that's jumping so much. But in general, we looked at every task from start to finish. So taking into consideration the administrative staff time, technicians' time, how long it takes to drive out to an average destination, materials costs. So it could be that one included higher materials than what we were recovering previously. And looks like that's it.
Maybe you can get some clarification after the meeting or something. Thanks.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll go out to the public. Anyone like to address the council on this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll bring discussion back to the bench. So I know you mentioned this, Bob, that we need to do a better job of looking at these costs on a regular basis. We've done cost service analysis for the cost of processing water. We should be looking at cost service analysis for these kinds of ongoing business costs. And I get it, we have to make adjustments. We haven't made them since 1995. I can just tell you it's a little frustrating because this council has had to take on a number of assignments, whether it's put more money in streets that have been neglected for decades, whether it's build a new water treatment facility that's $500 million, whether it's to raise rates that haven't been raised since 1995. This group has taken on and shouldered that responsibility pretty well. But it doesn't make it any less frustrating, and certainly the taxpayers don't always understand that either. And so all they see is increases. But we have to take care of our infrastructure. We certainly have to fully recognize what the cost of doing business is. I hope that we don't push this off onto some future council 50 years from now and we look at it on a regular basis. Did I vent enough?
Mayor, your comments are well taken, and it does represent a change in philosophy of the council for the last couple of years, and especially when it comes to user fees that target a specific group, smaller group, and trying to minimize the subsidy by the general ratepayer or the property taxpayer. And so this is probably one of those last, I should be careful when I say that, because I do think we have some other revenue or fee studies that we're doing as part of the operating budget. But again, we're trying to keep the costs down for the average property taxpayer and ratepayer.
Thank you. If there's no other comments or questions, I would move that we take the staff recommended action.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Cast your vote. Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, next item.
Councilmember appointments and comments.
Appointments today, any needed? Councilmember Johnson?
No appointments, Mayor. Just wanted to highlight the trip to Washington, D.C. last week with NLC.
Hey, before you highlight that, we didn't do a very good job of when we approved that trip. That was actually paid for by NLC.
So that was my next comment.
Oh, I stopped it? All right.
NLC actually covered that trip for myself and the assistant city manager. They paid for that, but it was a great trip, great information, and we got to learn from other cities around this country. And we learned about one city in particular that actually works with, per ordinance now, tribal government. And they're working on giving some land back to that tribe and working with them on making sure services are accessible and things get better. So really great trip, lots of good information, and looking forward to sharing that with you all.
Well, thank you for representing Wichita, and thank you for chaperoning the city manager, or the assistant city manager. Any other comments, appointments? I would move that we adjourn today's council meeting.
Second.
Motion and second to adjourn. Any other? Cast your vote. And we're adjourned 7-0.